Tucker Carlson says that Trump could be assassinated. He also said America could end up in a war with Russia. Are either of those things likely? Are we already in a war with Russia? And am I American? Hello there, you 6.5 million Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom. Turn on the notification bell right now. It helps us to get our message to you. It helps us get past the WHO guidelines. It helps us to get past dark algorithms that may not be in the service of your awakening in the manner that we pray that we are. Remember, I'm doing stand-up comedy. There's a handful of gigs in the UK. There's a link in the description. Come see me. Intimate venues talking about democracy, craziness, live votes, awakening. You'll love it. What you may also be interested in noting is that the media landscape has significantly shifted. It is now understood that Tucker Carlson is more popular than ever since leaving mainstream, albeit right-wing mainstream media outlet Fox News. Every interview he does gets a lot of attention. His appearance on Adam Carolla's notorious and fantastic and innovative and brilliant podcast has mostly gotten attention, mostly because he said that Trump could realistically be a target for assassination. Let me know in the comments, do you think that's true? Would they ever go that far? And that America will end up in a, to quote him, hot war with Russia. Let's have a look at Tucker's conversation and see, now that Tucker is unshackled from the mainstream, does he have a new ability to bring important talking points to us, the public? Or could you say that Tucker is comparable to Rachel Maddow, who recently said that if Trump gets elected, he'll make himself dictator president for life? Let's start with his perspective on the war between America and Russia and the potential for it to escalate. Do you think it's escalated already? Do you think it's being overfunded? Do you think not enough emphasis is put on a peaceful resolution? Do you think Trump would have a better chance of bringing about peace than the current administration? Let's see if Tucker builds a reasonable argument for an ascent and escalation into a hot war between the United States and Russia, or is it hyperbole, before looking at his claims that Trump could be assassinated.
The problem with criminalizing politics is the people who do it imagine or know that it will be done to them. So once you start indicting your political opponents, you know that you have to win or else they're going to indict you if they win, right?
Right.
And so they can't lose. They will do anything to win. So how do they do that? They're not going to do COVID again. I know everyone on the right's afraid they're going to do COVID and mask mandate. They're not going to do that. They can't do that. If they've already been exposed, that won't work. There's going to be, no, what are they going to do? They're going to go to war with Russia is what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. And
really?
Yes, of course. They want it anyway. I don't think we'll win it, but that's a separate analysis. But I think it's a political matter. They need to declare war footing in order to assume war powers in order to win. I believe that. And I think the evidence suggests that's true.
Do you think it's possible that America would go to war with Russia just to legitimize further powers, or as Tucker calls them, war powers? Have you noticed that there have been situations that have been utilized recently to create scenarios where authoritarianism appears more legitimate? Is that plausible, or is Tucker being too extreme? Is this the kind of hysteria that many people would accuse Rachel Maddow of when she says if Trump gets into office again, he'll make himself president for life?
The election means one of two things. Either he loses the election and he goes to prison, or he wins the election, he doesn't go to prison, and is that for life that he gets to be president?
So if you're worried about our politics getting like even more vicious than it already is, and people being hurt in our politics, which is entirely possible, you should be worried about the prospect of an open war. We're already at war with Russia, of course. We're funding their enemies. So we're fighting Russia. But I mean, an open battle with Russia where we say we're at war with Russia. I think that could easily happen. I think we could Tonkin Gulf our way into it, where all of a sudden missiles land in Poland. The Russians did it. Our NATO allies been attacked. We're going to war. I could see that happening very easily.
As we become more awakened as citizens, as civilians, as awakening wonders, you can bet the establishment is becoming more sophisticated in their methodology as well. With the war in Iraq, they found a reason to go to war with Iraq. We have to go to war with Iraq. They've got these weapons of mass destruction. I know it's far away, and I know you don't see Americans die in this war, but these weapons of mass destruction, where are they? Oh, yeah, sorry about that. What do you imagine will be the motivation in this instance? As Tucker said, missiles in a NATO country or an attack on the nation of an ally. Do you think it's possible, particularly in the wake of the Nord Stream pipeline, that an event could be created or manufactured to facilitate increasing tensions? That doesn't seem implausible either, does it? Let me know in the comments. So far, nothing Tucker's said is ridiculous. We are already sustaining a war. We're already not using America's power to bring about a solution, but to prolong the conflict. So everything so far, I think, is reasonable. Do you?
So if you're worried about that, you need to put as much pressure as you possibly can on the Republican-held Senate to force a peace, which can be done. The United States could force a peace in Ukraine tonight. We're funding one side. There is no Ukrainian army outside of NATO. If NATO withdrew its support for Ukraine, Ukraine would crumble in a day. So we are the only power in the world that can bring both sides to the table to force a peace, which will be unsatisfactory as all forced peaces are. Like each side will give more than it wants, but that's the only option. Otherwise, I would bet my house on it. We are going to war with Russia. And of course, the stakes are everything, our life on the planet.
In my conversation with Sam Harris, we touch upon the subject of the war between Ukraine and Russia. Sam Harris's point is the Ukrainian people want to sustain the war with Russia. And I would say, what do the American people want when it comes to the funding of this ongoing war, let alone, as Tucker suggests, a potential escalation into a hot war? Defending the Ukrainian people is one thing, but if the solution to this problem lies in the hands of America, whether the solution is escalating tensions and hostilities or de-escalating them, then the American people ought to be consulted. In a sense, the moral and ethical factors ought to be in the hands of Americans. Obviously, the claim is made, we don't want responsibility for those decisions. But I think increasingly people do. I think people want to say, I don't support that war. I would like you to use US military might to bring about peace, not to continue war. Let me know in the comments what you prefer.
I mean, these are the two biggest nuclear arsenals in the world facing off against each other. So this is insane. They're insane. I mean, these are not rational people. Would they go to war with Russia? Of course they would. Again, they want to anyway. And I don't know why Republicans don't get this at all, but they don't seem to get it. And meanwhile, Republican leaders, and Mitch McConnell's senile too, so I don't even blame him, but all the stupid Republican senators and McCarthy in the House, I mean, it's pathetic. These people are all on board with the war against Russia. Why?
At the moment, that doesn't sound like hysterical right-wing rhetoric. It seems like a pretty fair analysis of what's happening. And what's great about it is he said that it will happen within a year. So there's going to be an observable timeline. So, okay, next September, let's see where we are. Let's see if there has been an event that legitimizes further hostility. Interestingly, he has to mention the amount of senility and different types of madness that dominates American politics. And for a moment, let us at least acknowledge that from the beginning, many people have been saying Russia is not Iraq. Russia is not Afghanistan. Russia is a serious world power. Why are we not immediately acknowledging, hold on a minute, this is 2024, both parties involved in this have the capacity to destroy the planet. No one wants that. Let's find a peaceful solution. And as Tucker said, that kind of diplomacy is going to inevitably lead to compromise. But I would say the 500,000 deaths up to date already represent a compromise, and each further death is a further compromise. There will be compromise. So all we're really discussing is what type of compromise is it likely to be? I can't keep doing this. Whether it's Tucker talking about Trump or Maddow talking about Trump, you know that their personal biases are informing the way they convey the narrative. What you need, though, is ground news. Because I tell you what ground news do. They gather thousands of news sources in one place. So you can see mainstream reporting right beside independent news reporting. And if you don't like the fact, like it says here, that the BBC is ranked as centre, then that's fine. That's not really the point. The point is you can compare coverage for yourself and make your own informed decisions. You get international perspective and not just the typical nationalist mainstream narratives with the same political agendas. For example, this story about EU importing record volumes of natural gas from Russia. Have a look at this. Only 25 sources are reporting on this and very few US publications, but Germany, India, Australia, France, and of course Ukraine and Russia are all covering it. What I like is that they even show you who owns these media companies so we can have a real conversation about how government and corporate agendas influence public debate. You only get this feature on the Vantage subscription, which they're giving you 30% off through my link. I think they're doing really important stuff. We use this resource ourselves, so subscribe for unlimited access. The link is in the description. Go to ground.news/Russell Brand. Right, let's get back into this story.
I'm maybe the only person in the United States who doesn't really have very strong feelings about Russia. I'm not that interested in Russia. I don't see it as our enemy or ally. I just don't have strong emotions about Russia.
A lot of people talk about American isolationism or even nationalism as a great problem, stating that it's America's role to somehow police and control the world, with the assumption that what America's doing is spreading democracy, issuing foreign aid. I'm increasingly beginning to feel that a role of American corporatism and imperialism is to increase the profits and advantages of elite establishment interests, rather than somehow go around philanthropically helping people out all over the place. What do you feel? So why would America saying, hey, Russia's not really any of our business, be a problem? Of course, Ukraine and the Ukrainian people deserve protection and support, but is the best way for that support to be issued a continuation of military action? That seems to be a legitimate question.
So I look at this and I see true hysteria. Like, they've convinced themselves that our global enemy is Russia. And I really think they mean that. And certainly the Republicans mean it. You know, the Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, you know, the low IQ wing of the Republican Party, which is most of the Republican Party, is low IQ at the leadership level.
Tucker has become an anti-establishment figure now, hasn't he? He now exists in the same space that we do in independent media, where we have no trust in either party nor the system itself, and we are able to demonstrate the reasons for our lack of trust when it comes to pretty significant geopolitical issues like this escalating war. The only way that you would discount what Tucker Carlson is saying, I suppose, is if you wanted to maintain hegemony, if you wanted to maintain the orthodoxy of the mainstream media and the current political system. This is ridiculous. This is outrageous. But as we've observed, he's put a timeline on it. Let's see what happens. Has the conflict escalated so far? Is what they claimed would happen happening? Is the counteroffensive going well? Have you been asked if you want to continue this expenditure? Does anyone benefit in particular from the post-war Ukraine scenario, like BlackRock, Vanguard, etc.? All of these are valid questions, and all of us lead us to, if not certain conclusions, pretty astute areas of inquiry and near diagnosis.
They all think that, and they mean it. And like, someone needs to slap them awake. You're leading this country to its destruction. We've already lost control of the world. The American empire's in free fall right now, and we're going to lose the US dollar. And when that happens, we're going to have real poverty here, like Great Depression level poverty. And it comes from this war.
Tucker's, of course, referring to the BRICS alliance between Russia and Brazil and China, which is only being fortified by this conflict and is indeed likely to lead, or at least has the potential to lead, to the dollar being replaced as the global currency. It's curious to me that these kind of subjects aren't being presented in a plainer and more transparent way, but they're sort of obscure and peripheral issues that don't seem to be being openly discussed, and the potential consequences of them are continue to be ignored.
And I don't understand why no one else can see this, but it's super obvious once you leave. Spend a week in Europe and talk to smart people on both sides.
When he said that, I thought, does he mean me?
It's like, it doesn't matter what their politics are, and ask them, like, what effect do you think the war in Ukraine has had on American leadership in Europe? Dude. And by the way, Western Europe is our only reliable ally in the world. We only have one real ally. And that's Western Europe. And Western Europe is being destroyed by this. The German economy was crushed when the Biden administration blew up Nord Stream. I know nobody cares, but if you think like long term about this, they're really kicking the legs out from under this country in a way that is not possible to repair, at least in the short term.
Let me know in the comments whether you think that analysis is reasonable. It at least seems to me to be an argument worthy of consideration, not dismissed as hysteria. We are already in a war. It is escalating. It is costing a lot of money. America uniquely are in a position to bring about a diplomatic and peaceful solution, and that doesn't seem to be on the agenda. Why not? Why are we not at least discussing what just 20 years ago would have been seen as perfectly reasonable when it came to the conflict, for example, in Iraq, which, as all of us know, is nothing like as potentially globally lethal as this current escalating conflict. Now, if Tucker's claims about a hot war with Russia are reasonable, let's look at the other claim. Is it possible that Donald Trump could be assassinated? Do you think this is just the right's version of if Trump gets elected, he'll make himself dictator for life? Or do you think it's plausible? Let me know in the comments.
They protested him. They called him names. He won anyway. They impeached him twice on ridiculous pretenses. They fabricated a lot about what happened on January 6th in order to impeach him again. It didn't work. He came back. Then they indicted him. It didn't work. He became more popular. Then they indicted him 3 more times. And every single time his popularity rose. So if you begin with criticism, then you go to protest, then you go to impeachment, now you go to indictment, and none of them work, what's next? I mean, graph it out, man. we're speeding toward assassination, obviously.
Consider that for a long time, Tucker Carlson was a regular news anchor that was indeed on MSNBC or CNN. He was like a mainstream media guy. Look at how he is able to construct arguments. Now, do I think it's possible that Donald Trump could be assassinated? I suppose it's possible that anyone could be. You know that RFK has had his security detail withdrawn, or at least has not been given a security detail. And Tucker's argument for the potential for Trump to be assassinated isn't, I don't think, as hysterical as Trump making himself dictator for life. That seems to be more hyperbolic, because if Donald Trump went, I'm dictator for life, well, like, think of all of the international remedies that could be applied to that. Think of the domestic and national remedies. When it comes to the assassination of a president, and, oh yeah, I suppose it has never happened before. Yes, it has actually. They killed JFK. When I say they, I mean, I don't know, because they still won't release the files.
They have decided, permanent Washington, both parties have decided that there's something about Trump that's so threatening to them, they just can't have him.
So there you are. Trump, who has long been an anomaly, and to say he's a divisive figure is pretty reductive. And how can you ever emphasize enough how much Trump divides? There are people that think that Trump is literally the worst thing that's happened to American politics, and people that think he is the best. You can't get more divisive than that. Is it possible? Is it plausible? I would say yes. I think with the escalating social conflict, with the continued demonization, even if it wasn't part of some deep state plot, which I don't think any of us could rule out, the chance of a random individual taking it into their hands, certainly not ridiculous compared to some of the comparable rhetoric emerging from mainstream media spaces. So it's what I find most interesting about this is it takes a figure like Tucker to present ideas that are jagged and vivid and that you simply don't see discussed in the mainstream media, and in particular with his analysis on the Russian war and its potential for it to engulf the globe. I would say it's a pretty fair critique, and one that all of us should be considering. When it comes to Donald Trump, there's always a chance that something like that could happen. Reagan, JFK, so I suppose it's possible. But that's just what I think. What's more important is what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe. If you've never commented before, comment now. Do you think that Tucker's voice is more accurate than the mainstream media? Are Tucker's claims about Trump more or less ludicrous than Maddow's claims about Trump? Let us know if you think that we are marching blindly into a war with Russia, as Tucker claimed. Remember, I'm still doing stand-up comedy, 5 intimate UK-based shows. There's a link in the description to get your tickets. More important than any of that is that you please, if you can, stay free.